For the first guest, we do have a special guest who, of course, I'm sure you've seen in interviews and all over the news and all sorts. I mean, I was very lucky to see him in a prison visit and then later on another programme. And to have him on this platform today means the world to me. I'm clearly losing my voice because of it. But we have with us today Mohammed Akunjee. Welcome to the show.
Sorry.
Walaikum salam. He is a leading criminal and human rights solicitor. And he's no stranger to the headlines. Of course, you will know him as Shamima Begum solicitor. You will know him as various other terrorism cases solicitor and so on. But we won't be talking about the cases today because we want to know more about you. But moving on, of course, you've gone from representing clients in high-profile terrorism cases and national security cases, and of course, you've challenged government decisions, and then you've moved on to a whole career in politics, from what I understand recently. So, where did you find the passion to join law when you were young?
Well, I have to credit that to my father, to be honest. He and I argue a lot, and so I decided that if I enjoy it so much with him, I'll try and do that with the public, but all constructive. So in argument, you get the best results that come out of it, in theory. This government's making that harder though, but in terms of that passion came from there.
Right. And then you decided what, you want to become a lawyer? Was there something else that you could have done with that passion of, wanting to fight all the time?
Well, I was supposed to go into medicine, that's where I was starting, and a passion to fight is not exactly the best bedside manner, right? So to save potential NHS patients a great deal of grief, I decided I ought to take a different career path.
Right, and then you studied law, I understand, at University of Sussex, is that right?
Yeah.
And then you went on to study, of course, you did the LPC at University of Westminster. So what made you decide to go down the solicitor route versus, becoming a barrister?
Well, okay. So,
I've put you on the spot, haven't I?
Well, the honest answer is because if you want to be a barrister, you have to kiss a lot of solicitors' asses.
Yes, that is right.
And my lips were never built to be puckered up. So I took a route that didn't involve kissing up or kicking down.
Right.
I think the times have changed now.
Of course, yes.
So things are a lot better. You don't have to butter so many people up.
No.
But if you have a temperament that doesn't, let's say, have to accommodate people that you may think aren't on top of the game, then the solicitor path is the one to take.
Definitely. Now, when you started your path as to being a solicitor, did you decide to go down the criminal defence route straight away, or what made you decide, okay, I want to, pursue that career?
Yeah, to be honest, it was a lot of Islamic issues around that.
Yeah.
So one of the greatest things that a person should avoid is interest, riba. And in the Hadith it talks about people who take riba or involved in riba, that on the Day of Judgment that they will be given weapons by the angels and they'll be asked to fight Allah, basically. Pick your weapon to fight your maker. So the problem with most other areas of law is that when you're representing clients, you're applying interest to either a payment out or a settlement or a judgment. And in order to avoid that, I tried to find an area of law which didn't have interest as part of its rubric or inherently within its DNA.
Right.
So criminal law lent itself to that.
Okay, perfect. And then when you did start criminal law, and did you go down the prosecutorial route at any point?
My first job was as a prosecutor.
Oh, wow, okay. And how did you find that?
Boring.
Boring, okay.
Most of that is just reading what a police officer has written. And when you've spent however many years at university, and you're asked to apply somebody who's got 16 weeks at Colindale, it's not one that lends itself to somebody who wants a challenge or have a challenge in life, just reading out police officers' statements.
I remember once a barrister told me that if you want to be a good defence barrister or just know how to do anything defence, you need to know how to prosecute. How much of that is true?
That's very true. Right. We start our defence work, every case we do, we prosecute it first, internally in our heads.
Of course.
So you try and work out what all of the lines of attack will be from a prosecutorial point of view, and then you do your defence work. Once you know what the attack is, then you build your defence. But that was much easier to do if and when you were in a 15 or 20 years ago when legal aid gave you the time to actually apply yourself to that. And so I can't blame my colleagues for not being able to take such a in-depth approach to cases nowadays. But what I would encourage them to do is to try and do more private work as well as balance that with legal aid work, and then in the aggregate, you can find the resources and time to apply yourself that much to
Of
your
course,
work.
I think I was talking about legal aid and like private work. It's so hard to as well come across the private work. I mean, a lot of
See, this is the false economy of it, actually,
Right.
is that if you are looking at the pennies, only looking at the pennies,
Right.
you're never going to be able to find the time to excel in your work,
right,
which means you're going to be stacking things high and doing a relatively medium to low quality service. And so no, you're not going to get results. And so no one will put their hand in their pocket to pay for a low quality result.
of course,
So what you end up having to do really is to invest in yourself by investing in your clients and doing it at a loss initially, but getting those results. And then when you have a track record where people can say, we went to him and we had a good service, we got a good result, then people will beat a path to your door.
and that is literally your LinkedIn profile. Results and results. Everywhere we put your name in Google, anywhere else, it's just results and results. And it's amazing to have you on this platform.
Well, you know, victory is in the hands of Allah,
Yes, of course.
but you make your effort,
Of
basically.
course,
And if you don't
definitely.
make your effort, then you didn't tie your camel, and that's your fault.
Of course. And for someone who's starting that career in criminal defence, I find it now especially, it's hard to pay my bills sometimes because I'm thinking, okay, I do want my experience, but also I can't.
Well,
exactly.
you can blame the Ukraine war on that.
Yeah.
Gas prices have gone up hugely. So, I mean, there's a whole number of factors around that.
Yes.
But, you know, in terms of incomes, they've gone up by roughly 20% in 20 years. The cost of living and housing and bills have far outstripped that. So, you can do as much as you can in your career, but generally careers on the whole you're going to fall behind the bills. So the reality is that if you want to stay ahead of the curve, you actually have to be in business.
Right.
Otherwise, the world is finding out that employers aren't there to look after you, they're there to look after themselves.
No, of course. I agree with that statement. So moving on from there, you've branched out to obviously different areas of law. So what made you decide, okay, you want to go into human rights, international law? I mean, they very naturally fall into play part with criminal law as well.
So the reality is that look, I picked a career because I want to cause some trouble.
Okay.
That's,
Yes.
And I have enough resources and time that instead of let's say, earning more money and paying more tax, I'd rather earn less money and do the things that really I care about. So, for example, Shamima Begum was a pro bono case. That was 4 years of our time.
Yeah.
And then suing Tommy Robinson to bankruptcy, that was another 3 years of our time. But rather than earning that money and paying half to tax, we'll do that work for free because it's interesting. And no
Yeah.
one else will do it,
Yeah.
because no one's doing it for free. So those are important cases that move the needle on our culture. And they were important to do. And some people choose to, buy fast cars. I choose to mess with the right wing.
No,
basically.
of course. And other than those two cases, is there a certain case that stuck with you? You're like, you know what, this is the reason why I want to do this type of work.
No, there are many cases. There are
of
many
course.
cases like that. But in terms of, there's nothing worse than the state saying that you're a thing when you're not that thing, or somebody accusing you of something. And there's a lot of rape cases out there
Yeah.
now, which are completely false allegations.
I agree.
And I don't think there's anything worse for somebody to be accused of than sort of sexual offences when they haven't done that. And when you fight a case, and we do, unfortunately, we're in a situation where cases that should never have gone to court are now thrown in front of a jury because
Yeah.
of the political paradigm at the moment. And that's often somebody who's gone through 2 years of actual hell, and the stench and scar of that allegation will stick with them. But the relief they have at the end of being found not guilty on that, every one of those sticks.
Definitely. Now, what's one of the recent human rights cases you worked on? If you don't have to go into too much detail about it, but of course, if there's something interesting about it, you don't
There's a
have to
few
share.
things that are interesting, but I can't go into it at the moment.
Okay, fine. But other than that, what else are you doing outside of like working in criminal law, human rights? I mean, I understand you took a step towards politics. Why did you do that?
Well, the law is an emanation of state.
Yes.
It's part of the political sort of existence of a state, its sovereignty and what have you. And what that really means is that the law will follow what the politicians say. Politicians make the law, and the lawyers and the police and the different things, they apply it. But sometimes our politicians are just donkeys, and so we don't want to follow a donkey going
No,
down the wrong
of course.
route, and so we try and fight that in the best way that we can,
Possibly
or
can,
within
yes.
our profession maybe. And when you've got a genocide that's happening, which was after October the 7th, we saw a state that's supposed to be, a Western modelled rule of law based state, continuing in a slow burn genocide, but escalating it into a full-on, compressed one, and our politicians breaking every law that exists against genocide and war crimes, and disapplying the law, and actually, as we've seen yesterday, criminalizing people who are actually against genocide, then that means the law's not working, certainly in that particular aspect. And so our problem was the politicians, many of them being bought off, frankly. Yeah. And so we need to break that issue of there being two political parties that can be lobbied, which means bribed. Yes. And their structure can be bribed, and then they force the rest of the politicians to take a wrong path. So for us, it wasn't just about, it's the Conservatives and Labour. The issue was, if you want to have representative democracy, you have to have independent MPs who are not part of a structure of control, basically. And so the idea was to try and get as many independent MPs through Parliament as possible. And at the moment, there are 5.
Right, of course. And I mean, I saw a lot of videos of yourselves doing the campaign and everything. And what was it like for you, being out there in the public, doing the campaigning? What was the feeling?
Well, it's a mixed bag. So you get a lot of people who support, and that's always excellent. And then you meet a lot of morons, really. Like, the public's made up of quite a lot of really stupid people. And then you despair. You think, well, actually, if there was a nuclear war, it wouldn't be so bad. Basically, the speeches is quite disappointing. But that's maybe why we find ourselves in this situation, where so many people are so apathetic, so completely self-centered and frankly narcissistic, that you have a bunch of idiotic politicians who are basically running roughshod all over their rights. Right. And they're not interested because they've got a washing machine and they've got, Sky TV or whatever. And that is really the monster you're fighting, is the apathy, because they've been effectively, set asleep very cheaply.
Of course. And moving forward, is that your plan still to pursue a political career, or,
I'm involved in the political landscape.
Of course.
As to whether I step forward again, I think it's going to depend on whether... See, I wasn't involved in politics before. It was really a genocide that really sort of... pushed me to do something because others weren't. Yeah. And back in the day, we had politicians. You had Jeremy Corbyn before, who was leading a party. And before that, you had Tony Benn and others. People who are political animals and were decent people and who were moving the needle and fighting the corner. Yeah. But we see less and less of that because we see a professionalization of politics. And politics shouldn't be professional. It should be decent. Right. So if the call is still there, the conditions are still there, then I may answer it.
And what would you advise young people who want to follow in your footsteps, whether it be in a career in law, whether it be a career in politics, what would you advise them?
It really doesn't matter what you pick. You should try and find something that gives you happiness, because you're going to be doing that most of the time. Yeah. Definitely. And if you're doing something that isn't your passion, then that really is the seventh circle of hell. So find your aptitude and be the best that you can be in that. And within that framework, apply the morals that your parents, if they're decent, that your parents had tried to impose on you, and you make sure that world happens. The world that we have is just a collection of wills. And right now, it's just because good people are disorganized that bad people's will are easy to invoke on people.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
My
I know
pleasure.
10 minutes and 12 minutes is not enough to speak to yourself, but I'm really grateful. Thank you.